What's up, everybody? Welcome to this show, which this is the third edition, but I think I finally have a title for it, which is I think Comic Talk is a good. I think that's a good title, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
here I
For
am,
now.
and here with a very special guest, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing the name, but Georges Jeanty
That's
is
it. I love it.
uh yeah, there you go. Is with us today, and he's a fantastic comic book artist of many years. He's very well known DC, Marvel, and of course his 10-year work on Buffy is well known to many of us. So here you are, and thank you so much.
Anytime. I am here for the people.
So what we do kind of here is we kind of go over just kind of everything from the beginning to now. And so and as an interviewer, I try and stay researched and stuff, but that means going on Wikipedia, right? So using what I already know, I know that you were born oh shoot, where'd you go? You grew up in New York, is that correct?
No, I was born in New York, but I grew up in Miami.
Okay. Yeah. And you're of Caribbean parentage, I believe. Uh,
Somewhat, yes. Caribbean. I've never heard it quite put that way. Yeah, my mom was Dominican and my father was Haitian.
there you go. And so growing up in Miami, what was it what was for you the experience that kind of turned you on to eventually making comic books the way that you have?
I mean, I was one of those. This was I was a really little kid in the 70s, and my mom was a working mom, and I was more one of those latchkey kids. So I would come home with, nobody there, and it's just me for a couple of hours and whatnot. So, you really get into whatever's on television and then other things, whatever is around you that you can normally get into. And I don't know what it was. I know my mom introduced me to comics. I think for nothing else, just to shut me up while we drove in the car. But otherwise, that just sort of stuck with me. And
Hmm.
I started reading stuff like Fantastic Four. I've always been a Marvel fan, so
Hmm.
I started on Marvel and pretty much stayed there my whole life. And I did start reading DC stuff in the when I was in high school, but Marvel stuff really captivated me. I don't know. It's just one of those things, who knows what grabs you and when it does. Maybe it's just something that comes at the time that you need it. And I guess at that time I really needed that familiarity, that comfort, because comics gave me a lot of comfort. I don't know why. They were just that was the world I wanted to live in. So it was a mutual admiration.
Well, it's interesting you talk about how you fell in love with comics, and we all have that sort of story, but there's many comic books fans out there, but not all of us can draw. So is there a certain age where you realize that you could actually draw these things?
Well, the art was another thing. Yeah, I think you fall into comics and either you love them or you grow out of them. But the fact that you could actually do them, I think every little kid sure draws comics. I was in high school or I was in elementary school, sitting with friends and whatnot, and we would all just do comics because that's what kids do. Um, I think the difference is when you realize you have an aptitude for not necessarily comics, but for art.
Sure.
And I realized, hey, I can. As you start to realize you can draw, and if not you, the people around you start to say, hey, you're actually pretty good. Hey, you look like you know what you're doing, or hey, can you draw this for me? And I started to get a lot of that. So after a while, you realize, hey, well, maybe I can actually do this. And you get older and all that stuff, and you get serious about it, and you realize, yes, you do have an aptitude for it, and you want to do it. And but that's man, that is a process that took years for me because even in high school, I didn't know if I could do comics. I knew I wanted to, but I didn't know if I could do it.
Yeah. So I read about how Daredevil 183 inspired you, and that's an interesting issue because for most people it would probably be Daredevil 181, two issues before is the such
Uh,
iconic one.
which one is that? Is that the what's 181?
181 is where Elektra dies.
Where she dies. Yes. Well, no, I thought it was that one, wasn't it? Or
Well, look at
183. If you're going to start believing Wikipedia, I think, yeah, that's the. No, I think
I
it is.
got
It's where Bullseye and Elektra come to
you. Yeah.
fight. And really, it wasn't even just that one, although that one really did, I think, resonate with obviously thousands of people. There was even a mention in it in an Angel episode, believe it or not, from Buffy.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
it was just the storytelling ability of Frank Miller. And notice I say storytelling ability and not artwork, because I think storytelling and artwork are very much two different things. And I didn't realize what storytelling was until I started reading Frank Miller. And the thing I started reading Frank Miller about was Daredevil. So I probably started in the wait, if you that was 181. I probably started in the 170s somewhere.
Mhm.
And just every issue. I remember arguing with a friend because he took umbrage with Miller because he hated the fact that he would pick up a book and be finished with it in 10 minutes. And I agree with him, but I was like, but oh my God, those 10 minutes. You are captivated for that whole time. And yes, I wish it was longer. Like, say, reading an issue of The Watchmen, you have to put aside like a half an hour or so. But otherwise, I was just captivated by the storytelling that Frank Miller
Mhm.
was doing. And that's what really got me. His artwork, too. I really enjoyed his artwork, but it was the storytelling that got me there. So, yes, in answer to your question, it was that particular issue among all the other issues he did.
Mhm. Awesome. And so at some point you decide you do want to get into comics after high school, I assume, and you your journey long before you ever got into mainstream sort of DC and Marvel comics, you sort of got into indie comics from what I'm reading, and eventually relocated to Atlanta to do some indie comics. Is that right?
You mean as an artist?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you're first starting out, and granted, there are those who are very lucky and can get a job with Marvel and DC the minute they graduate high school or college or whatever. I was not so lucky. And not that I thought it was a bad thing. And I tell people who come up who want to draw comics and ask me for some advice, I say start with the independents because you're never going to like what you do when you first start drawing comics. And you're going to feel very grateful that whatever you started drawing, there's only maybe 800 to a few thousand copies of that. But if you lucked out and you got a fill in of the X-Men and it's circulating at 100,000 copies per unit, that's something that's going to stay with you for a long time. So a lot of my early stuff, thankfully, is very short run, and a lot of people can't find it, and I'm very okay with that. So that starting in the independents to me was okay. But yeah, I started when I was in Miami and living there. I started working for some companies, obviously through the mail and FedEx and all of that. And I didn't leave until one of those companies said, "Hey, we're up here in the Hickory, North Carolina. If you move up here and work out of the studio, I can guarantee you more work," is what the publisher was saying. And I thought, well, hey, this is your sort of coming to Jesus moment. Do I do this because I'm serious, or do I just say, no, this was fun, but I have to go get a real job? And I, packed up all of my belongings, which fit in a very small U-Haul, and drove up to Hickory, North Carolina. So I was very serious about what I wanted to do once I got serious, because I didn't realize I wanted to do it for a long time.
Yeah. And of course, the call was answered to go to Marvel and eventually, I'm not sure which one came first, Marvel or DC, but you eventually got a lot of work there.
Ironically, it was DC that came first. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you did lots of things. It talks about Superman, Superboy. Of course, the one that I think stuck out for a lot of people, again, from what I'm reading, is what stuck out to Whedon to get him to eventually hire you was Bishop, the Last X-Man over at Marvel. Out of all those, like, what was the most sort of memorable experience? I mean, I myself am more of a diehard Superman fan, but what for you was like a dream come true?
Yeah, I actually started with a fill-in on Green Lantern 94, number 94. And this was the Kyle Rayner era
Mhm.
that was on. And really, that's memorable for obvious reasons. Here I was really just in awe that I was doing a professional comic. And then from there, almost immediately, because the writer who was writing Green Lantern was also writing Superboy, I jumped on, I believe it was issue 45 of Superboy, because I think Tom Grummett and Carl Kessel, who were the writing and drawing team, they were leaving. Or was it, or maybe Ron Mars was the writer, and Ron maybe had been writing for a little while, but that was where I had at least 5 issues. So it made me think that I wasn't just a one-hit wonder with this fill-in that I did for Green Lantern when I got the 5 issues, and I thought it was going to be ongoing for Superboy. I thought, okay, this is more than just a passing fling. This is something that might actually make it. And
Mhm.
I would have stayed on longer if, funny enough, Tom Grummett and Carl Kessel didn't decide to come back to Superboy. So we summarily got kicked off of the book, and I was once again just sort of waiting like in the pool, waiting through all of these things and getting little fill-ins here and pinups and one-shots and things like that. Thankfully, over at DC, I was very fortunate to meet a lot of nice people at my time with DC, and regardless of my upbringing, I admired DC's editorial staff because they were very much professionals, and they treated it was a business, and it was a business they liked, but it was very much, hey, we're going to try and keep you working because you do have potential and you look like you could do something in the future. So I was very grateful to those guys, and I stayed with them. If I started in 90, I think it was 97, 96, 97 that I got that Green Lantern. And I worked for DC off and on for like 7 years until I
Mhm.
got that Bishop, the last X-Man over at Marvel in 1999.
Mhm. Yeah, that had to be a tremendous thing because Marvel being, what you grew up with and everything like that. But
Oh yeah, I was in awe. I could not speak.
who I don't think I have it written down. Who was writing the Bishop book at that time?
Oh, that was God. You would have to ask me that question, wouldn't you? I can see his name, and it's been years since I've had to say it. He was right. He was more of a prose writer. He wasn't necessarily as much a comic writer. Now, he's still writing today. God, I'd have to look that up. And sadly, I don't have an issue just laying around here. That was
Yeah.
over 20 years ago. Oh,
Well,
get
it
back to me on that,
says,
and
hold
I
on,
will.
hold on. It's the internet to the rescue.
Oh, hey,
Uh,
if only somebody had a computer.
Hold on.
No, Joe Ilyich? No, oh, it's gonna
Joseph
kill me.
Harris. Joe
Joe
Harris.
Harris. There you go. The great Joe
Yeah.
Harris. Yes. He started writing that, and the thing that was good and bad with that series, because at that time everything was X-Men. If you had the
Mhm.
X-Men, you were selling
Yeah.
tons of issues, and everything was connected. So if you bought this issue, you had to buy that issue, you had to buy that other issue, and it was all spider webbed together at some point.
Yeah.
The thing that Marvel did with Bishop was to take it out of continuity, and they said, "Hey, this is going to be its own story." And Joe is, or we were all okay with that, saying, "Hey, this is great. We can follow our own path," which helped and hurt us because now
Mhm.
that we weren't connected to every other book, um, people were like, well, now I don't have to read this comic because it's not connected to the X-Men or the Uncanny X-Men or the, under
Mhm.
X-Men or anything like that. So I think it hurt us in the long run that people lost us in the
Mm.
deluge of X-Men books
X-Men,
because
yeah.
there were so many books coming out. It was hard to really look at a title of a character that never had his own book. He wasn't a Wolverine, he wasn't Storm, he wasn't any of these other recognizable characters from days
Mhm.
of yore. This was a pretty recent character at that point. And while popular, he was still very much an underground
Mhm.
character for the X-Men universe.
Mhm.
So I have to say, we trudged along for 16, 18 issues, I think. And I think the great thing that Joe was trying to do, he was trying to do his own version. He told me once he was trying to do his own version of Lord of the Rings. And when you read
Mm.
that series, you see, because like I said, it's taken out of continuity, and Bishop is in some other universe, and it is very much a wizards and fantasy type tale.
Mm. Well, yeah, I've just finished page 800 in Lord of the Rings myself, so
Oh, did you? Then you
try to
might
read it
enjoy
every
that
year.
book.
Yeah, I might have to go get that book. I'm a pretty big fan, so and an X-Men fan as well. So, uh, but yeah, going, obviously, you've done tons of work for DC, Marvel. If I could talk about them all, I would. But let's talk about the sort of the big thing. The thing that sticks out is your 10-year run with Joss Whedon and other, his team of writers, everyone from Brad
Uh-huh.
Meltzer to tons of people on Buffy seasons 8 through 12.
Sure.
Such a incredible thing. And I have to just add on a personal note. I'm obviously here I am doing creative things like this, trying to be creative, making my own things. That's all because of Buffy.
Mm.
That's like when I was in eighth grade, I watched an episode of Buffy and it basically changed my life, the course of my life forever. So you talked about what it was for you. That's what it was for me. So you know, that's
You
just a
know,
personal note for me.
as a testament to how good all of that Buffy stuff is, and it sounds hokey to say it, oh my God, Buffy changed my life. That almost sounds like a silly catchphrase now, but you'll be surprised how many times I hear what you've just said. Whenever I talk to somebody saying, "Oh, you really worked with Joss," man, seriously, I can't tell you how much Buffy changed my life, my writing, the way I approach writing, all of these ideas that now are so commonplace in literature these days. I think so much of the working professionals had a lot to owe to Buffy and that period. Obviously, not just Joss. You had Jane Espenson, you had Petrie and Drew Goddard and just a bunch of writers, amazing David
Wonderful
Fury,
writers, yeah.
a bunch of amazing writers. And I think under the umbrella of Buffy, it was literally a master class. If you stuck it out and you really watched and absorbed, not just let the episodes affect you, but as most people will tell you upon repeated viewing, you understand the structure and you see how things go and how things come in and come out, and all of that is done by design. It's not by accident. And I think that was definitely to Joss's credit. He was very much, and ironically, well, not ironic, but he was a comic book fan, and I think he
Mhm.
structured it very much like a comic book in a literature format that just gave way to amazing storytelling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. That as a Buffy fan, it's good to hear stuff like that. Yeah, that's absolutely. And a
Oh no, I
Firefly
give
fan as well.
total
And
props.
you did Firefly Leaves on the Wind. So there's all that work is amazing. And I'm pretty sure I own that too. So Leaves on the Wind. But for Buffy, it's interesting because you again, just reading from Wikipedia, not taking it as gospel
Hmm.
truth, I suppose, but I talked about how it's that was initially a challenge because you had to draw the characters like their likenesses in the TV show. I think you said that took 30% more time, but it's okay because uh, just awesome stuff to draw.
Yeah, well, I had never, and of course, I'd never been approached before that because while I had done Superman or Bishop or Gambit or any of those other characters, for the most part, those are your interpretations. Those characters are the artist's interpretation. You may say, well, Christopher Reeves looks like Superman, so that's the character I'm going to draw, and that's fine. But you're not beholden upon that to say, if he doesn't look like Christopher Reeves, this cannot go out as being published. Whereas Buffy, of course, everybody knows that, and to her credit, whether she likes it or not, and I think in the later years she's accepted it, Sarah Michelle Gellar will forever look like Buffy. And it's
Mhm.
ironic to say that because obviously Sarah Michelle came before Buffy, but now and forever she will always look like Buffy. And uh, that totem with all of the other characters is something you do come up against. And it was very intimidating when I got offered a job and really started to think about, hey, can I do this? And I told Joss, hey, I don't know that I can do this because I've never done likenesses before. I've never been on a book where it was, so likeness heavy. And he said something very profound, as is Joss's way. And he doesn't even realize it. He said to me, I'm not as interested in her looking like Sarah Michelle Gellar, but just try to make her look like Buffy. And I thought, well, in a very Zen way, that was genius because he was relieving me from doing a screen capture. Here, this
Hmm.
is how she looks here, and this is how she looks here, which he and I both thought, God, that's really stiff way of telling a story. We don't want it where, when it takes us out of the action when you just see sort of a stoic looking figure, and it's from a photograph. If it
Hmm.
works within the context of what you're doing, that's fine. But that's its own job, I think. So having said that, I still attempted to do the likeness, and that's where that 30% factor comes in. It took me 30% longer to draw a page because I spent that time trying to really define the likeness of not just Sarah Michelle, obviously Allison Hannigan, and all the other characters who were in that show. Obviously, too many to name, but everybody knows exactly what they look like. And that was the hard part. It was a labor of joy, don't get me wrong, because it was the same thing for Firefly. There you had 9 characters that I had
Hmm.
to actually draw. But it was a labor of love. I would not have traded it. And there were times where I thought I was just going to give up altogether, but I would not have traded it for anything.
That's fantastic. And just one more thing about that series is what I mean, gosh, when I talk to comic book artists, like I just talked to Phil Hester, and he was known for like his 45 issue run on, or not 45, I think. Anyway, he was known for a brief run on or on Green
Green
Arrow.
Arrow, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and but you come on and you leave, and that's kind of how they are. And I've never heard of anyone, and you weren't on Buffy for the whole 10 years, every issue.
Right.
You went off. But
Exactly.
what's it like to be on something like that for 10 years off and on? Um, you know.
It was great. It was always nice to be called back. And of course, Phil had the distinction of working with Kevin Smith. So I'm sure to him, that was an amazing time for him as well. And for me, it was one of those things when royalty calls, you answer. So whenever they kept calling me back, hey, you want to do another season? Or even Joss and I had a conversation at one point after Buffy, where he just kind of said, "Hey, we're bringing back Firefly. Do you think you might want to do some of that?" And of course, it's one of those things where you fool yourself into saying, "Yeah, let me think about it." But of course, you want to answer before he's even finished with his sentence. Yes, 1,000 times yes, I will do that. And that was pretty much how it was. I do look at my time with Buffy as my own personal masterclass with some of the best writers I think I've ever worked with were definitely on that book.
Oh yeah.
And even though they were not, in some cases, comic writers, which I don't lessen that because I think Alan Moore is short of a deity. Even though they weren't necessarily comic writers, they understood that, or they quickly understood, or were told, this medium is like your medium. This medium is storytelling. Just tell a story. We'll figure out how many panels, we'll figure out how many pages, we'll figure all that other stuff out that is indigenous to comics. But essentially, this is storytelling. So go tell a story. And in many cases, that's what they did. And you can tell because there were a lot of times where I would ask the particular writer in residence, do you mind if I maybe make this a splash page? Or this would be a good part to, make it seem this, or I can put a couple more panels to create a little tension here, that sort of thing. And they were always very, very generous with whatever it was they wrote to say, here, this is the script, but as the artist and storyteller, you are the one who can make it realized. So they gave me a lot of leeway to just tell it as a story rather than, here, I wrote 6 panels, therefore you must draw 6 panels, and
Yeah.
never the twain shall meet. So there was a lot of generosity on that book.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about where artwork meets storytelling. And I think that's a credit to both you and them that you guys could
Yes.
work together to create something as grandiose as that and as great as that.
Yeah.
So
I think, again, to Joss's credit, it was great for him to get somebody who knew how to do comics and knew storytelling rather than try to bring in somebody who was new to comics and somebody who was new to writing comics. I don't think that would have meshed too well, because I do feel you need someone, if you're coming outside of this business, you need somebody in the business to know where the stop signs are or where, the turning signals are. All of the technical stuff, I like to think I helped out
Hmm.
once it came to it. And not that they really needed much help. Most of those guys were just they were telling me, "Oh, this is pretty much we were writing a teleplay and but we had to do it in page breaks instead of, just writing it straight through."
Hmm. Yeah, but you're absolutely right, and you were right about saying, it's not just Joss, it's Jane Espenson and I believe Drew Greenberg was on that, and
Drew Greenberg, uh-huh.
yeah, and just the whole. I mean, for me, it was, I don't know if she ever did an issue of the comic book series, but the actual episode that changed my life was one written by Marty Noxon. So just gonna throw that
She was the
name.
one person that Joss really wanted, but she just had so many other things. But we did reach out, or they reached out to her, and she was interested in really, because again, with that Buffy stuff, it was like such a big club, and there are just so many people in that club, and she felt so bad that she had to be left out of that club because she had so many other things she was doing. But she
Mhm.
was the one get that we didn't get, unfortunately, from the old series.
Yeah. Well, she's doing good all on her own. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. No, that was never a question.
yeah. But nowadays, what you might be working on at this particular moment is, of course, the Mace Windu series from Marvel, with writer Mark Bernardin, which is a
Uh-huh.
tremendous thing. Just talked
I
about Kevin
am,
Smith.
yeah.
So, but yeah, Mace Windu, that's obviously an incredible thing. It's one of the most popular characters to come out of the prequel trilogy. How did that come about in terms of, I mean, was it Mark's idea to do a Mace Windu series, and did he come to you directly and all that?
I wish it were that formal. No. I around COVID and everything got locked down, once things started to open up, I was lucky enough to get a fill-in on Star Wars: The High Republic.
Mhm.
And from there, the editors and the editors are of Star Wars are pretty much the editors of all of the Star Wars books. And from
Mhm.
there, they were like, "Well, hey, we've got another book. Would you like to fill in that?" Sure, of course. And I believe somebody dropped out of the Mandalorian, and they approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to do the Mandalorian?" And again, sure, of course. It's one of those things you don't say no to Star Wars. Is the
Yeah.
edict I keep telling people. And I just never said no. Whatever they were throwing at me, Star Wars, I was taking it. So after 2 seasons of Mandalorian, there was a bit of a wait, and the editors were like, "Well, hey, we don't know where season 3 of Mandalorian is going to drop exactly. So, in the meantime, what would you be interested in a Mace Windu series?" And I was, of course, I'm going. Of course, I would be. And from there, which I've just finished, and in their infinite wisdom, they were like, "Okay, well, we've got an Ahsoka series coming up. Is that something you'd be interested in?" It's like I started to hear this song once before and going, "Yeah, okay, sure. I think I can just sort of rubber stamp a yes to whatever it is you're asking me."
It's Star Wars, yeah.
Hmm.
So is that I take it that was gonna be my next question is kind of what's next, but is that after Mace is Ahsoka and everything? And
That's it. Yeah, I start it next month. I think it comes out in the summer sometime. It'll be every other issue because they do want it to come out a little sooner. And with these books, such as the Mandalorian, they're oversized, not oversized in terms of size, but the average book these days is 20 pages. These books are 30 pages. So I'm basically doing a book and a half in the
Mhm.
same time I would be doing a regular book.
Mhm.
So that really requires a lot of work, and they're getting 2 artists, myself and someone else, to
Okay.
do the Ahsoka chores.
Okay. Well, that brings us up to the present day, and I'm always, I never really know how to end these things, and but something occurred to me that it would be a great thing to ask is, well, what's something that you've never done that would be a dream that would still be a dream come true? What mountain haven't you climbed yet that would you'd like to, see come true
Well,
someday?
as like everybody's doing these days, everybody has an IP, everybody has their own intellectual property, and
Mhm.
they want to do their own creator thing. And I do have a lot of that. And it's funny because before the Star Wars came to me, I said to myself, okay, now I'm going to start my own creator owned things that have been sitting there for years now. And I'm going to go right to it. And that's when I got the call to Star Wars. So I put those things on the back burner. I've always, well, like I said, I would love to bring it full circle at some point. It was Daredevil that got me really interested in comics as a process, as a profession, I would love to do a Daredevil. And God help me if Frank Miller said, "Hey, you know what? I've been reading some of your Buffy stuff. I would love to do a Daredevil something with you." You know, a guy can dream. So that would probably be a great. I loved Fantastic Four growing up. I was such a Thing fan. I've never actually drawn him. I've done him for commission pieces, but that would be fun, I think, to do a title that I grew up on. Mostly was the Fantastic Four. So yeah, probably those two. I would probably not say no to at any time.
Yeah. Well, I think, the great, just as a side note, the great un I think that hasn't happened yet. That the great meeting would be Joss Whedon and Fantastic Four. And just like, why has that not happened in the universe yet? He did X-Men, but like that's
He
like
did
his
X-Men,
style of
yeah.
writing. It's like,
I
hello.
well, I think because he admitted that he himself was a huge X-Men fan growing up, and there's this story that Kitty Pryde is the template for Buffy
Of
when he
course.
finally became a professional. So I think that was more his jam. I don't know that
Sure.
the Fantastic Four were necessarily his jam, but I'm sure he has a respect for them. So I don't know that I would be getting that call anytime soon, but it wouldn't be a call I would deny. I can tell you
I would be the first one, the Whedon and Jeanty Fantastic Four. I would be out there at midnight camping out to get that comic.
Oh my God, I'd be right there with you too. I would love that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program, and I love doing these things. I'm not sure who we'll have next, but we've had three great creators, and it's always a pleasure. It's always a thrill to talk to you guys. So thank you very much for coming on.
You are welcome, my friend, anytime.
All right, folks. Well, I haven't had to come up with a good outro yet. So write to me, let me know what I should end of these things on, because all I can say right now is thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
There you go, Ryan.